Welcome back to Face the State on this Sunday morning. It's now been a year and a half since the election of 2018, and Republican nominee for governor Bob Stefanowski is back in the news. He started a drive to bring masks to people all across Connecticut. Mr. Stefanowski joins us now on Face the State this morning. Mr. Stefanowski, good to see you.
Hey, Dennis, good to see you.
So first of all, tell me about the genesis of the mask drive.
Yeah, so it was late March, Dennis, and we were hearing stories about nurses going into hospitals and placing these disposable masks in a paper bag, putting their name on it at night and wearing it again the next day. Healthcare providers going into nursing homes with absolutely no protection at all when they knew that the homes were infected. So we made a few calls. We were able to find a broker down in New Jersey, of all places. We drove our truck down. We made sure that they were FDA approved. I loaded them in my pickup truck and we brought them back, and we haven't stopped since.
And how many have you given out so far?
We crossed the million mark last week. We had an event up at the Woodstock Fair yesterday. We're getting close to 1.2 million.
You had said it was easier for you to get the masks than it was for government to get them. Why is that?
Well, you know, government has a lot of procurement processes that they need to go to. And at the time, Dennis, there was 5 times as much demand for these masks as there was supply. So you got to be willing to go down. You need to check them out. You need to wire the money same day, and you need to bring them in your truck and bring them back, because if you don't, they're going to be gone. And, you know, when it's a crisis like that, I think you've got to throw policy out the window. You just got to get these masks back, because people were putting themselves at risk situations, and we were happy to be able to fill the gap.
Do you believe that the federal and state government failed people by not being able to get these supplies?
I think the supply chain broke, Dennis, and I think there's a lot of people that got sick that probably wouldn't have. If you look at where the majority of the problems are in the nursing homes. And we probably gave out 10,000 masks to nursing homes the first week, and they desperately needed them. So I think you learn a lot from a crisis like this, but I think having a sense of urgency, doing what you need to do to keep people safe, I think is something that we could all learn from this horrible thing.
Have you had any conversations with state government about this effort?
Not a lot. When I found the broker, I made sure that everybody knew that broker was available. I didn't try to keep it to myself. A couple of the hospitals in Stamford make big orders by themselves. They put the procurement rules out the window, but other people didn't, and so we kept moving.
I know I'm not the first person to ask this question, but there are some people out there who are saying, he must be running for governor in 2022. Is that your plan?
You know, Dennis, 2 years is a long way away. I can tell you I enjoy this much more than politics. When you get a car driving up with 2 kids in the back seat and you give them 5 relatively normal surgical masks, and that mom looks you in the eye and says, thank goodness for you're keeping my family safe, that means a lot. I honestly haven't decided. It's 2 years out, Dennis, but I'm happy with what I'm doing right now. It's very, very rewarding.
If you were governor right now, what would you be doing differently from Governor Lamont?
It's a tough question, Dennis. You know, nobody saw this coming. I think there's 2 things that jump out at me. One is there's a lack of transparency. When we spend $2 million of taxpayer monies to hire an outside consultant to come back and reopen Connecticut, imagine what you could have done with that $2 million. You could have kept 10 to 15 businesses open, making payroll. You could have provided more food at Rensselaer Field. I think so. Transparency, number 1, and consistency is the second. When you look at what the hairdressers went through, you know, they got their hair salons ready to go. They had appointments booked out for weeks, and then 2 days before, we changed our mind. So I think you can second guess the questions, but to me, it's more about being transparent about it. And being consistent in the message. And that's what people are looking for in a crisis, and I'm not sure we're getting it right now.
If you were governor right now, would you open up the state completely, or would you do it in phases like the governor's doing?
I think we have to open it up faster, Dennis. You know, when you see the lines at Rensselaer Field, people for food, a bad economy has health impacts as well. And safety and health need to come first. But at a certain point, when people are out of work and they can't afford to buy groceries every week, that's a health concern as well. It's going to be a bad economy coming after this. So you need to be cautious, but I think we could be opening up things earlier, yes.
In your judgment, how would you assess the job that Governor Lamont is doing in terms of managing the state during this pandemic?
You know, there's plenty of time to debrief, Dennis, and in the middle of a crisis is not the appropriate time. I'll get back to what I said before. It's unprecedented times. Every decision you make is going to be second guessed, but you need to be transparent. You need to have people have some input into the process. They need to understand why the decisions are being made, and you can't waffle. And we've gone back and forth on a lot of decisions. People have made their own efforts based on that, and that's not fair to people. You need to be consistent, and you need to be open.
How do you think President Trump has been doing in terms of the national management of the pandemic?
I think the same thing. I think, this whole supply chain on PPE has been tough. And this impacts people's lives. This is not a normal situation. So I think across the board, Dennis, state, local, federal, I think we learned a lot from this. Hopefully it never happens again, but hopefully if something similar like this happens again, we'll be better prepared for it.
This is an election year, as you know. What is your advice for Republicans out there running in November? There's no hand-to-hand campaigning right now, handshaking, things like that right now. What kind of advice do you have for them?
Two things. Get the message out and stick to the local issues. I think 2 years ago, I think a lot of people voted based upon what was going on in Washington. And I have many of those people come up to me and say, we made a mistake, because what it really matters about is local politics. And they don't like the way Connecticut is headed right now. And I think a lot of the local races, people are not happy about the mill rates. They're not happy about what's going on in their town. So keep people focused on what's going on in Connecticut and in their local towns. And if you do that, the principles of fiscal conservative, cutting spending, lower taxes is really going to resonate with people.
As you look at the landscape this year, we have a couple of big names retiring at the General Assembly, Demis Claridis, Len Fasano, in the Senate. Do you see any openings for Republicans across the state?
The statewide elections in 2 years, or this fall, or both?
This fall.
Yeah, I mean, you look at up in Sprague, Kathy Austin. I mean, that's a seat that we should be able to win. I think a lot of these House races are going to be hotly contested. I think we'll pick up seats in the House. I think hopefully we'll pick up seats in the Senate. Whether we'll get control back, I don't know. But Dennis, people are very, very unhappy with what's going on in Connecticut, right? Particularly with respect to the economy. Affordability is a big issue. You've got people moving up because they just be here anymore, and I think people are ready for change.
What about the 5 congressional seats? Any hope for a Republican taking one of them? In your opinion?
In that round of funding, Joanna Hayes has been out there for a while, and I think that's one we can pick up.
Bob Stefanowski, we are apparently having some technical problems, but we thank you so much for being with us this Sunday morning for Face the State.
Okay, thank you, Dennis.
Take care. When we come back, a rare interview with a Connecticut Supreme Court justice. And we welcome your comments about today's program on social media. Do you agree with Mr. Stefanowski about what he just said about Governor Lamont? You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.